one day they got enough fentanyl to kill 21 times the population of the state.
That's crazy.
And that ain't all staying there, you know, it's going everywhere, so. That gal over in Jackson died, that's what she got. Right the hammer.
Call to order, and we'll open with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we got one item, another cigarette license that would like to add to the consent agenda. And I guess that requires a motion.
I'd make the motion to add it to the agenda.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay, the same sign. Okay, yeah, the consent agenda consists of council minutes from January 11th and 17th, telecommunication minutes from December 19th, HRA from January 11th, Tree Commission from January 18th, Utility Commission from January 25th, Joint Government January 30th, and the Planning Commission January 31st. And then there's two license applications now with there's a gambling permit and also the cigarette license, yeah. And then the regular bills. And that's all the consent agenda, so if we can get a motion to approve that.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
It's been made and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Do we have any department heads that would like to speak that won't be coming up later in the meeting? Okay. I guess we're ready for MnDOT to come up, if they're ready.
Thank you everybody for having us.
Remember, push to talk on the mic.
Thank you everybody for having us. Matt Bieber with the Minnesota Department of Transportation.
And Nick Ulrich also with MnDOT.
And we're here today as a follow-up to the discussion we had with council back in November, kind of following up on some of the concerns, questions council had received on some of the restriping and signing on the south edge of town. And so we've taken a number of those questions back to our internal staff and our management, and we have just a couple responses here, kind of follow up on those, see if there's any additional questions that have come up in the meantime, and then just kind of touch base with the council as well. So really what we saw when we kind of summarized our notes from last meeting is there was kind of some main themes we saw, some of them related to things that could be addressed with signing, some that were related to speed coming through town, some that were more just kind of informatory, here's kind of some of the things we're hearing, and then some that are more larger things that would be addressed with, which would be a larger scale project that would have some follow-up on kind of what was done with like that corridor study through town with some of the bigger impacts. So really what we wanted to do is just kind of run through some of the notes we had, kind of get some of the responses that we gathered some information on, and then just see if there's questions related to those. So I'll just kind of run through here, and Nick and I are going to do some back and forth here. Nick is more of the technical side of things with some of the expertise there, and then we'll just kind of answer questions as they come in. So kind of going through from the top down here, there were some questions regarding to what happens when things are covered with snow, questions around would more signs be helpful, is there a way to inform people about where is 71 relative to the quick trip turn lane when you're heading southbound out of town. concern about, okay, what if things are covered in snow? How are things going to be identified and recognized? And then is there a way to provide some advance notice ahead of that lane drop on the south edge of town before the bridge? So, Nick, I don't know if you want to kind of address those.
Yeah, I can jump in and just kind of share again with the council what we looked at and implement. We implemented a few things on the front end, and as I go through, what we've done and what's forthcoming, feel free to jump in. This can be kind of a dialogue, kind of a discussion. So let me know if you have any questions as we kind of go through some of these pieces. But you likely have seen we did add some additional signage out there. So we added signs that would, in some circumstances, be optional, and then some are just enhanced signs. We added some additional signage. For example, for that southbound lane drop as you're heading out of town, we added an extra right lane end sign a block ahead of the signal. So, and that one kind of, we drew, I think Matt and the rest of us drove every single movement, and that one really kind of jumps out. I think that was a good idea, Steve, to have that included. So really trying to enhance the signage, add some distance plaques to those so people have a sense of how far ahead does that lane actually drop. Those are some of the really kind of short-term measures that we took based on some of that feedback. So I think we're able to address almost all the comments that we heard about the movements that you all have been hearing feedback on, concerns. The one I think that we couldn't fit in was coming into town northbound. There was a comment regarding a little bit of confusion about whether you can turn at 71 to get to Quick Trip, or that access, that right turn into the frontage road. Based on the sign spacing and other messages that we have out there, we weren't able to add an extra sign to clarify that, but really you can take either turn to get to Quick Trip if you needed to. So that was one area where we didn't really add anything additional there, but for the other movements and lane drops, we added some extra signage.
We were able to add the one that identified that second left to 71 as you're heading southbound.
Yep.
So that sign was put in part of that. So that kind of runs through the signage questions, and we're just trying to group things together, just more for us to allow us. Next kind of area that I had here, there's a lot of comments around speed. So some of these were concerned with the speed limit coming in from the south. Traffic seems to be moving fast in the south merge. Concerned with speed at the south end of the project, and then speed coming in from the south. So kind of a common theme there. So Nick, maybe if you want to touch base some of the information we tried to gather there on some of the speed data.
Yeah, and I mentioned it back in November too, that MnDOT was looking at collecting some additional speed data after the changes in striping on the south side of town. And so what we did is we went out and kind of we didn't complete a full speed study yet, but we collected a bunch of speed data. And what we did was we picked specific locations along the whole corridor that is now a 3-lane section and leading up to it, and just took measurements with a radar gun. And that's kind of the first step leading into a speed study. And based on that information, we do have some preliminary results coming out of that. And we weren't quite sure if having that lane drop, going down to one through lane in each direction, if that would bring speeds down or not, given the pavement is still out there, it still feels kind of wide and drives faster. We didn't see a lot of change in driver behavior. So folks are still their speeds are aligning pretty well with the speed zones. If anything, they could have potentially been moved in closer to town, but I don't think that's something that we're really looking at this point. They seem to be in the appropriate locations for how folks are driving the roadway. So early results are kind of saying that we don't anticipate changes in speed zones or where the signs are located. That being said, there might be some other treatments we could look at to try and help reduce speeds coming into town. One that came up as we were talking about it with others at MnDOT was if everyone is familiar with those your speed signs or a driver feedback sign. It's a radar sign that puts up on your digital readout of how fast you're going. Those can be effective at urban boundaries if you put them out for periods of time, and so that's something that we talked about as an option if we wanted to look at going down that route. If the council was interested in something like that to try and help with a little bit of speed management coming into town. One other kind of other idea that we talked about at MnDOT was, I think there was some concern about speeds where you have the lane drop coming into town and the potential for moving that further into Windom. And as we're looking at how that lane drop lays out in terms of its length and then the intersections that are along there, I think to accommodate that, we would probably have to look at either closing 3rd Avenue or making it a right-in, right-out. And I believe Matt maybe had some communication on as we were planning this project, and that maybe wasn't feasible at the time based on developments or things like that might be planned. But
Yeah, it was my understanding that there's some development planned on the southern edge of town, and there would be some concern if there was anything changed there. So really, what Nick's saying there too is that in order for that lane shift to happen any further north, there would have to be some changes in access. So that's the only real way that at this time there could be any shift in that lane drop further to the north than where it is in its current location. So.
But do you have any questions on any of that information related to speed or coming into town in the south end?
Yeah, that's one comment I continue to hear is the traffic coming in from the south makes it sometimes hard for people to pull out of the quick trip, whether you're making a right or a left, just with the, especially when the trucks are coming. People feel a little less, I shouldn't say encouraged to pull out in front of a truck, so, but that's one that I do continue to hear that one.
Okay.
I've heard a couple of comments about people living on that side of town, about semi trucks and coming into town and then not reducing their speed till right when it says to reduce the speed. So then they're putting on their brakes and they're hearing that. So just the noise of those semis to the people that live around that area. That's one concern that I've heard from some residents.
Me personally, coming out of Quick Trip one day, I don't know what the pedestrian was doing, but they come up on me real quick and they almost clipped me in the back. And I was coming in from town and they're coming into town, and it just seems like they come up on you real fast between the Jackson turn and the Quick Trip driveway. There's just by the time you get from the stop sign to the lane itself, they're already you watching them come at you. They're almost on top of you before you get there. Is there anything we could do about that? Slowing them down before they even come to the Jackson turn?
Yeah, I think that's where, and MnDOT in partnership with Towards Zero Death or TZD, we do have some dynamic speed display signs, as we have all the vehicle speed feedback signs, as we would call them, and we use them throughout our whole district. So they're always kind of moving around, trying to help with reducing speeds in different areas. But it's something that we could deploy for a couple weeks at a time, just to maybe do some targeted enforcement or targeted efforts to try and slow people down coming into town, if that's something that folks would be interested in. We could look at lining that up.
Is it, I'm trying to think now, I don't go out that direction too far coming back into Windom, but isn't it 45 up to, I'm not sure where the cutoff is of where 45 when you're coming into town from that?
Yeah, the 45 zone starts just south of 71, and then it turns, and then it's 30 when you get to right around the liquor store in that area, just south of 6th Street.
I think that's what the concern is shouldn't it be 30 when you're by Quick Trip? Should 45 start a little sooner as they're coming in, and then down to 30 when you're near that Quick Trip intersection? I think that's what people are like. 45 seems, so yes, people maybe are going the speed limit, but 45 seems pretty fast when you're at a dead stop at Quick Trip trying to pull out, and people are coming at 45 miles an hour. So I think that's where people feel like they're speeding, but they may not be speeding because it is actually 45. But I think 30 seems like you feel like you're in town there when you're making the turns in and out. So.
Yeah, and that's always the challenge with speed management that we see all over the place is people kind of drive for the context of the road and how it feels and how safe they feel in that environment. So we have not had good success with just kind of changing where that sign is located to try and drive motorist speeds down. you don't get good compliance, and then you just have more people that are breaking the law. We try and sign it for the 85th percentile speed is what we usually try and target for that, or fairly close to that. But yeah, it's an ongoing challenge. But like I said, if we wanted to look at deploying a vehicle speed feedback sign, whether it's either at that 45 mile per hour sign, the first one coming into town, or at the 30, that might help get people down to those speeds a little bit quicker. And if there'd be an opportunity to pair that with some enforcement, to have both go together, that's pretty effective too, at trying to help slow people down. And we can follow up after the meeting too, if that's something that we want to look at further.
Have you watched semi-traffic coming out of that west exit of Quick Trip? Especially if they want to make the left turn toward Worthington. I've seen several of them, they stop the inbound traffic because the semi's so long. Trying to get across to go left. And without the roundabout, that left turn coming out of the west exit doesn't work.
Yeah, and I think we'll talk more about the roundabout as we get through some of these pieces too. But yeah, roundabout would make a lot of sense for helping with access to 71 as well as Quick Trip, and then also helping with the speed management too. People would have to slow down to navigate the roundabout, and then you're not really at that higher speed as you're going across the bridge and coming into town. So that's a good comment though too. Yeah.
Okay, we can jump to the next here. So the next kind of theme that we have is some that have to do more with re-signing, restriping, or some variations of which that relate to the merge that takes place south of Highway 62. So a couple of the comments here, comment relating to the merging movement south of 62, possibility of a left turn signal, particularly at 10th Street. Approaching 6th Street, there's an excessive amount of lane changing to avoid left turning vehicles. Concerned with the tightness of that lane drop. Is there a way to shorten too many changes in a short length of road? Concern about changing the Trunk Highway 66th Avenue traffic signal. So what we have coming up is we're in the process of developing a project for 2025 where we're looking at replacing the signal at 6th and 10th. And so there's a need to replace those signals that we have to do them in advance of a larger project. So what we have is an opportunity at this point where we could look at some reconfiguration of the lanes that we can't do with the current signal configuration right now. We don't know the details at this point. We're just in the process of developing it. We started as an opportunity based on the need for the signals, combined with some of the feedback we received from the council at the last meeting, that this might be a chance to implement some changes and we're looking at doing a seal coat as part of that project. And what a seal coat does is it seals the bituminous surface, and so in essence covers all the striping when you do that. So what that striping looks like when it goes back down, we have an opportunity to look at something here. So we'll probably be coming back to council within the next couple months to vet out what are some opportunities that we can do with that project to look at building upon something that could feed into that future reconstruction project and give the community an opportunity to experience something different ahead of that. So we're still in the process of developing that, like I said, but want to kind of put the council aware that that would be an opportunity to address some of those concerns, because we could change where some of those lane configurations start and add some turn lanes to those signals at that point as well. So, Nick, is there anything I missed on that?
No, I think you touched on that one really well, and yeah, as a part of that, the two traffic signals that we do have in town are really kind of getting older, and so we've been trying to find an opportunity to replace those. And if we were to add left turn lanes or look at doing some different configurations to try and improve things out there, we would absolutely have to replace those signals. The mast arms aren't long enough, and that'd be the time to do it. So
I'm going to caveat it with, when I say 2025, with our funding, there's always flexibility. So things may need to move a little bit depending on how funding works, but that's right now kind of what we're tentatively looking at. So. Kind of the next one here is kind of a theme where Nick alluded to some more environmental changes that would have to take place with a larger project, primarily comments around people coming in too fast, getting up to speed, some of the concern with those environmental factors. A lot of that relates to potential for a roundabout there at the south edge of 71. Now, obviously, that would have to tie into a much larger project where they would have to figure out, is that something that's phased or something that happens for a larger project through town, but more that would happen within the next couple of years or anything in the near future. So, Nick, I don't know, do you want to elaborate on that one at all?
No, I think you covered that one pretty well. Yeah, that's part of the longer term vision for the corridor, and we see that as having a lot of benefits in terms of helping slow people down, better access to 71 and Quick Trip and other businesses in the area. And yeah, it's kind of the funding piece and where does that fit in the program? It's kind of on our radar, but it hasn't been fully developed yet.
The next group of questions here, I'm just going to kind of run through those. These were more of just kind of some general thoughts that we have some general responses to, but I'll kind of go through these as we go through here. There was a comment about the city potentially getting some drone footage. I don't know, did that ever take place or was there anything? Okay. Some questions about zipper merging. There was a comment about emergency vehicle traffic coming through town. That would relate more to existing laws where people are required to move over if there is somebody coming up with an emergency vehicle. There was some questions around.
Yeah, speaking to the mic directly into it. You turn your head back and forth. It's not picking up.
Okay.
People can't hear it. Okay, so speaking to the mic,
Okay.
not to the people.
Thank you. Does that work now? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. There's a question around, are there other cities in the area where there have been examples, traffic volumes compared to Windom, where there's different configurations that have occurred similar to what's kind of being looked at with other things at the south edge of town. Sorry, my notes here are a little bit scattered.
I think I can help you with that one.
Mhm.
I think the question was, are there other highway segments? Because I think we talked about Laverne going to 3-lane.
Okay, yes.
You know, of a similar sized community.
Yep.
But whether or not that was applicable with the amount of traffic.
Gotcha.
Is there a, you know, because we have 13,500 cars or 14,000 cars a day that go through here. Has there been a corridor with similar traffic that has made that kind of a lane configuration change? Because Laverne maybe not overly applicable just due to their traffic volumes.
Thank
So
you,
I think that
Steve.
was a clarification of that.
Perfect,
one.
thank you.
Yeah, that was exactly it. And yeah, you're right. It was just, have we seen other case studies where this has been successful in the past? And Laverne was the only one that came to my mind at the time. And you're right, it is slightly lower volume. It's, you know, in that 7,000 to 9,000 per day use Highway 75 through Laverne. And as Steve pointed out, yeah, Highway 60 through Windom is in the 9,000 to 12,000 range, depending on where you're at along the corridor. So it's more. But there are quite a few examples. There's a lot in the Twin Cities area, but even in Greater Minnesota, a few examples that you could look to. US Highway 10 in Wadena, that's around 11,000 ADT, so kind of in the same ballpark, and it's a US highway going through Wadena. They did a 3-lane or a 4-lane to 3-lane conversion there. Highway 27 in Little Falls. That one's around 10,000 to 14,000 vehicles per day, so a pretty good comparable, maybe just slightly higher volume than what we see in Windom right now. And then Highway 95 in Cambridge, another good example in, you know, Greater Minnesota, not up in the metro area, but it's you know, 12,000 to 13,000, so, you know, right around what we have in Windom or slightly higher. So it's been you know, has worked in other areas or other contexts and volumes similar to what we've got in town here.
Does that kind of answer the question on that one?
Yeah, were those all 3-lane configurations where we went from 4 to 3, or is there some other kind of combination?
Yep, yeah, it was 2 through lanes in each direction down to a 3-lane where it's 1 through lane and then turn lanes. So, yep.
The next comment we have here is there was a reference to St. Peter relative to what's being looked at in Windom. So what we did is we just took a quick look at what some of the dimensions are in St. Peter. So an approximate, now this is, we didn't go out there with tape measure, just from Samaritan Elementary, approximately 115 feet from face of building to face of building on either side of the street. And in the areas in town where it's face to face, where the buildings are right up to it, it's about 70 feet. So that just kind of gives you an idea of some of the space constraints that would be difference between a St. Peter configuration that was asked at the last meeting versus what the distance is available through Windom with some of the buildings that are up to the edges of the right of way there and what's available there. So anything else on that, Nick?
No, I think that kind of covers it. It's really the space constraint between the buildings, and that's a 45-foot difference between St. Peter and Windom, and so that's quite a bit of space that you could reallocate for. We measured roughly 115 foot face of building to face of building in St. Peter, and then got that one. Okay, great, gotcha. Yep.
And there again, those are real proximate that we did from aerial images. So. Questions about the stoplight here and merging, it relates similar to the stop sign that we talked about before. There was a question, Councilmember Quiddy, I think you had this last time, about people waiting 2 red lights, and we did take a look at the signals, and right now I believe there's some differences right now they're not coordinated. Is that correct, Nick?
Correct, yeah. So the 2 traffic signals in Windom right now, they're not coordinated with each other, meaning that they, as you drive through town, if you make it through one, you may not make it through the other one. They're not talking to each other. They're not working together. We are planning to, assuming we get the funding for it, planning to do a signal timing project later this year, probably be fall time frame, where we look at coordinating those signals to make them operate better together through town. We did look at the existing timing that's out there, and what's programmed we think should be adequate, but we just tried driving it as we were coming here and waiting on the side streets to see how much time we could get. Of course, we had people come up behind us, so we had to get going and get out of their way, but I'm going to double check and make sure that the detectors are working on those side streets. The timing seems like it should be good, but we'll double check that just to make sure we're not seeing something different going on there.
The northbound right 71, Nick, you talked about that before. There was a question about the raised median there, down there just south of the bridge. We did take a look at some turning movements. Sorry. Sure. There, enough. I think we're working now. Okay. So we did take a look, and the question was about semis coming southbound and trying to make that movement, and that is correct that movement does not work for semis to come through there. We did take a look at, even if that wasn't there, there were some concerns if some vehicles were stopped that semi coming through would require that whole area to actually make that movement as well if that raised median wasn't there. So as far as that question is concerned, I guess we don't have a good answer to a solution for that, other than it's a really tight distance between where that frontage road is and where the highway is, and to get people in and moved around there, it creates a concern for how to stop people that are trying to get out of there too and coming out on that right. Nick, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, sure. I'll try and add a little bit more to that too. But that, yeah, Matt kind of mentioned it. That was an existing tight movement as it stood previously, and so it sounded like trucks were kind of using the access to the frontage road and Cindy Street to get to Hardee's. And one other movement that we could see working now going forward is using kind of Cindy Street and Third, so they would basically park on that other segment of frontage road. That might be an option if they use those 2 accesses together, if there isn't the necessary site circulation on the Hardee's property itself. So they could use those 2 access points as opposed to Cindy and that frontage road. That was what they were using today. That's maybe all I'd have to add to that piece.
Is there any question there? That kind of covers the themes that we got for some of the follow-up items that we typed up here. Is there anything that we missed or anything that we didn't cover or that wasn't clear or you'd like additional information on?
I would just ask a question about reconstruction. A former city council member had mentioned that if all 4 lanes all the way through town get restriped, there's so much road surface that's taken out of use because you moved over to a single lane going either way. What happens when you have do a major road construction project? Do you pour all those 4 lanes back and then simply paint over them again? It doesn't seem like that would be very cost effective.
So when it comes down to a reconstruction project, typically what we're looking at is working with the community. Apparently I did something to this microphone. We work with the community on, similar to what was done with the corridor study, on finding information on what's desired up and down the corridor from right-of-way to right-of-way. So we realize that there are some constraints there with buildings right up to building faces to building face on both sides. But then you look at, okay, what can fit in between there from a sidewalk, boulevard, turn lanes, travel lanes, so on and so forth, to accommodate all the different modes that are going to be utilizing that through the community. So obviously right now there'd be a lot of work that would have to be done to work with the community members on the details of that. But ultimately that would build upon the initial work done with the corridor study that had kind of that high level vision, and then diving then into the details of what specifics would that look like. Not saying that it's going to look one specific way because that's what exists today, but thinking with an open slate on what could go back in the future to serve the community, the traveling public, and the those that are coming to the community to visit, to recreate, and go to the businesses through town.
With the winter months and the snowpack and the ice and freezing, has there been anything said about the maintenance of that coming down to 1 lane on each way, going either way? Because right now you go through there, you jump like a kid on a trampoline coming through there. I mean, it's beating up cars, beating up tires. Is there any plan to maintenance that type of thing, or?
Yeah, I have had conversations with our maintenance staff, and they're doing the best they can. They have a lot of resources that they're putting towards some snow removal when things come like that, just to keep things. That's kind of the first priority to that. But it is on their radar, and they have been addressing things as quickly as they can get to them, because they know that there are some of those areas, especially at some of those joints there where I think you're referring to, where between those panels where there's some joint deterioration there, where the pavement needs some extra attention. And with these freeze-thaw conditions that we're getting at, it's a good challenge that they're keeping up with the snow removal operations, the ice operations, and then as they have time, trying to get at that as quickly as they can as well.
I guess one comment I have is I think the signs that you put up, the additional signs, were good. I think for a lot of us that live and travel on this road often, we don't probably pay attention, because when you said there was signs, like I had to specifically look because I'm not used to looking at signs as I go through Windom, because I've been here a lot of years. And so once I paid attention to the signs, then it's like, okay, this made more sense. And I think so that's why locals maybe are like, oh, this is not good, because we're not watching the signs. But I think for people traveling through that don't come through as often, you know, they are looking at signs, because when you travel somewhere new, you watch signs, you know, more frequently. So I think it probably does make more sense to people that don't travel it as often than those of us that just don't pay attention to signs because we think we know it all. So it just, you know, getting used to looking at signs again and knowing, you know, where we're going and where we need to go. But I think that was an improvement.
Out of curiosity, can you tell me how long it's been 4 lanes coming through Windom?
I don't know off the top of my head how long that configuration has been present.
But one comment that keeps coming back to me was, for 50 years we wanted 4 lane from Interstate 90 all the way to Minneapolis. Now we're going to cut it down to 2 and 3 lanes coming through Windom. There's a lot of traffic comes through here, out of state trucks, so forth, and I don't know. It's an issue, I think. I mean, with most of the people, not everybody. A lot of people say, "Well, that's fine. There's a sign," and I know the way around. I don't have to go down through there. So, but a lot of people, they don't like it, and I just, what do you say?
No, yeah, I appreciate the comment, and it is a challenge. And to one of the questions we addressed earlier is that comparison to other communities on what that right-of-way available. So ultimately looking at what is the most efficient way to move vehicles. And there's a lot of thought that goes into that, a lot of balances that are made in that discussion on making sure that it's an inviting environment for people that are walking the sidewalks, but also efficiently getting that traffic through. And sometimes different configurations have different benefits, whether somebody is taking a turning movement through a through lane versus a turning movement in a designated turn lane. You have that expectation if you're in a through lane that you're going through, where if somebody's turning from that through movement has an impact on that traveling movement as well. So there's a lot of modeling and analysis that goes into that, but you're right, it's a difficult thing to take a look at, and there's a lot of different nuances to it. Nick, any additional comments on that?
Yeah, I think Matt kind of alluded to it well, but I can understand that sentiment of 4-lane versus 3-lane or some other configuration as we're looking at it going forward. But yeah, having that dedicated left turn lane where you don't have as much concern about someone rear-ending you if you need to turn left at some point, or someone goes around you and then the person behind them doesn't see that. Really, it's not really about, or maybe not necessarily about, how many lanes, but the efficient use of them and the kind of providing more order to those movements so that it's more, you understand what other drivers are doing, what that lane is for. It makes it more intuitive almost to use it in some cases. So as an example, in Laverne, when we implemented the 3-lane there, it worked really efficiently at moving vehicles and also provided that safety to have the left turn lane available so that if you're turning left, you get over into that lane and that space is available to you. We did see some pretty good safety benefits out of that. We did kind of a before and after study when it was a 4-lane, kind of similar to what it is in downtown Windom right now versus the 3-lane in the after condition, and there was some safety benefits realized out of that in terms of the crashes before and after. So it's kind of just a reusing of that space to optimize it for really all modes and provide that operations and also the safety piece alongside with that. So I understand the sentiment around 4-lane all the way through, but there can be better ways of doing it beyond that too.
You said about street light or new lights. We have cameras on them so that these darn trucks maybe start paying for it. It's not part of it. Because I know a guy that sits down at Hy-Vee for 2 hours every morning drinking coffee. And he counts them running the red lights, and they just one right after the other. And it's not just semis; it's a lot of cars also.
Yeah, and I can take that one quick here too. We likely wouldn't be able to put like a pan tilt zoom camera out there, just with those require more bandwidth or more data to run those. And right now, the 2 signals that we have in town they're run on, basically it's like a cell phone, right? So it's got a cell phone data plan, and that's how we can look at how they're operating. We can change timing from our office, that kind of thing. So I don't think we'd be able to put in that type of camera with the project. And along with that, we wouldn't be able to do red light enforcement via camera either in that case. So it would probably have to be through law enforcement efforts.
Is there a way, and you talk about these different cities that you've went into and done these 2-lane, is there a way to do a very efficient and safe 4-lane system through Windom instead of taking us back?
I guess that might come back to the space that's available in downtown. To be able to fit 4 lanes and turn lanes through town, there just really isn't the real estate with the buildings being right on back a sidewalk in a lot of areas. So I think it really kind of comes back to that. We just don't have the real estate here as we might with other locations. It's kind of context driven. Yeah. I don't know if you want to add on to that, Matt, or.
No, I think that's exactly what I was going to say too. Is it's working within the constraints to make the best thing available with the amount of space that's available, and so working within those. There's multiple ways to go after any problem in life, and sometimes those problems you got to look at them at what are the constraints available, and in this circumstance, space is one of those constraints. So what's the best way to improve that? Like Nick had mentioned, safety, how the traffic's flowing, provide that space for pedestrians on the side within the constraints that are present. So.
Well, thank you for coming, and if nobody else has anything, I think we can move on.
Okay. No. Thank you for your time, and thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Next item we have is electrical department.
Jason Sikora, Electric Superintendent. So what we have tonight is 2 basically scopes of work for engineering. 2 scopes of work for engineering from DGR. The first one is a amendment to a small task order we made early for preliminary design, basically to see what type of building, where the best place for the building, type of construction, best use of the land that we'd have. And so this is basically, all that has been completed. This is basically just amending that to take it further to through final design, construction, or bidding, and then construction for the gen plant. Sorry. So back in September of 2022, council approved, after the utility commission approved, to go ahead with the order of 2 3-megawatt Caterpillar generators. The reason the generators were purchased so early in the project was due to some lead times. So lead times at the time were anywhere from 16 months to unknown. Things were getting pushed back. Military contracts were taking all kinds of precedent at the time for the engines. So we just wanted to make sure we got those ordered so they would actually show up in time to claim that capacity. So after talking with DGR, trimming some fat off of their estimate to get it down to what we think is a decent number with a little bit of contingency still bid into it, the Utility Commission and staff would be recommending that the council approve task order 5, amendment number 1, for DGR to do the engineering for an estimated hourly rate of $989,000.
lot of money for engineering, but it's a big, big project. So I guess I would make the motion to approve Amendment 1, the Generation Edition.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Opposed?
Sure. The second scope of work would be task order 6. It would be for the construction of a truck shed. The truck shed that we are talking about building would be to replace the current truck shed building where the generation plant will be added on to the old plant. So the engineering estimate, and this is also an hourly estimate from DGR to oversee construction, bidding, and final punch list would be $117,700. This is also just an hourly estimate. So I guess, are there any questions on the truck shed task order from DGR? Sure. So what we have up on the TV screen there is you can kind of see the gray top building there on the TV there. That's the existing power plant that was constructed in 1936, and then that white where Steve has the cursor there, that's the truck shed. It's kind of a lean that was built on the back of the power plant. That was constructed in 1978. The roof has had lots of work done on it to try not to get it to leak. We actually had it in the CIP to replace the tin and the roof in 2023, but with this project we pulled that out. So that would be a tore off. That would be your gen addition there. It'd be about a 50 by 95 square foot building. It'd be about 120,000 pounds of radiator on the roof of that building, which is why that engineering contract for the gen plant addition is so expensive, because there's a lot going into that building. So after that would gen addition go there, the new truck shed would be over there in the red outline off the north side of the lone standing building that will be left there. And that's proposed right now to be a 70 by 94 foot building. Very preliminary.
We've moved on past this with the same general spaces.
So that red outline is what this task order would be to design there, the truck shed on the north side.
My question is then I don't know if it's a Lions or I can't remember what bathhouse is located right there. Is that going to go away then, or are we going to relocate that, or what's the plan for that when the truck shed gets built? 'Cause that kind of looks like it's about in the same, like it'd be right next to each other.
Yeah, the current, that's a Lions shelter. It's got 2 bathrooms in it. I don't think, to my recollection, that they're really in a working order. But it was discussed in commission meeting that would be tore down, and then either, if there was room, possibly moving some kind of bathroom facilities over to the Veterans Memorial side of the road, or potentially taking some funding and rebuilding another shelter, whether it be at Island Park or to help with that new shelter over there.
Okay. We have Park and Rec meeting tomorrow, and I think that's something to just be brought up. We've talked about that before, that those bathrooms there have never been in great working order and they're not ADA compliant. And so that was something we always looked at, is we needed to upgrade or do something with those restrooms anyways. So if you're gonna be building in that general area, if we can get some funds to hopefully do a different bathroom and make it, you know, ADA compliant, and maybe it's moved over, or like you said, maybe it's over when the Veterans Memorial Park area gets done. If it's over on that side, that would be a bonus. So thank you.
Yeah, yes, I'm not for sure exactly when that shelter got put there, but at one time all of that was part of the electric gem plant, railroad spurs, coal bunkers, cooling towers for the old steam, and as the plant came down, at some point that shelter building came up, so.
But it is electric department owned, it is not a park.
True.
Just
Yes.
so you know.
Yep.
Wasn't there a dump station right along the road there too somewhere for RVs?
Right
At
in
one
front of
time?
my office window, there used to be a dump station with a
Used to be.
with a water hydrant. Yeah.
Okay.
Marv maybe remembers that.
Yeah, it wasn't convenient, so we had it moved to Island Park in a bad spot.
So motion on task order 6.
Well, because the generation project removes the current truck shed, we need a new one, so I would make a motion to approve task order number 6 for the truck shed.
I'll second.
Motion's been made, second. Okay, item number 5 is a resolution approving amendments to the fees and charges schedule.
Okay, this is a annual fees and charges schedule. It's kind of a combination of all the fees, charges from various departments, including utilities or rec fees, things like that. A number of these have been set by resolution, but this is our document to kind of put them all in one spot, and we approve this annually. In your packet is the fees and charges schedule. Anything that was highlighted in yellow is a change. Everything else is the same as the prior year. You can see there's a change on this one for boarding of pets, no license and with license. There's a little bit of change in the fee because when we pick them up, they go to the vet clinic and they charge a fee, and so as their fees change, we have to change ours accordingly. So there was a change there. And then there was some utilities, utility commission had updated water and wastewater pricing, so that was factored in here as well to show those. You can see there's one in here for a John Deere motor grader. We don't necessarily rent out help to do private work, but we have to have a fee schedule in for our equipment and labor and things, so that if there's a FEMA disaster, things like that, they rely on what your fee schedule is so we can get reimbursement. So we have these rates in there as well. So if anybody has any other questions on any of the fees that were shown in here or changed, I can answer them.
I guess if there's no comment on that, we can request a motion to approve.
It's a resolution. I would introduce the resolution.
I'll second it.
We'll do roll call. Esplin,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Quaid,
Yes.
Benson,
Yes.
Grunig.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 7, there's 2 personnel items. One is for the telecom.
Yeah, we should probably do mayor appointments.
Yeah, right. Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I skipped over one. Yeah, I believe it's 3 members are gonna be appointed by the mayor to hospital board, so.
I would make a motion to reappoint Justin Schmidt, Dr. Michael B. Fisher, and Kay Gross to the hospital board.
I'll second it.
Motion's been made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, now we'll get to the personnel.
There you go.
I skipped over one before. Yeah, telecom.
Yep. Good evening. I'm Jeff Dana, the General Manager of the Telecom Department. Before you, I have an action item request of recommendation and action requested. The Telecom Committee and Telecom Operations Manager recommend to the City Council to hire Drew Rosso for the NOC technician position, starting at step 8 of the IBW contract, and after 6-month probation period, review an advancement to step 9, with anticipated start date on or before March 13th of 2023. After receiving many applications, interview with candidate, Mr. Ross was selected for the NOC tech position. He has the desired education, computer skills, and work experience for the position. And on January 30th, 2023, the Telecom Commission met and conferred hiring Drew Rosso for the NOC Network Operations Center technician position. So the request is to hire Mr. Rosso for that position.
I would make a motion to hire Mr. Russell for the NOC technician position.
I'll second it.
Motion's been made and second. All in favor, say aye. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And then the second item on the personnel committee is evaluation of Steve, the city administrator. On the agenda, it says closed session. Steve asked that it not be closed, so we're gonna leave it open, so. And I guess maybe turn it over to Marv as he's the chairman of the personnel committee.
Well, yes, members of the city council conducted an evaluation of the city administrator via the performance evaluation and planning form. The evaluation addresses multiple factors in relationship to responsibilities and competencies. New this year is a change in the rating scale that allows for a more defined rating score somewhere between 1 and 10, where 1 to 2 is unsatisfactory, 3 to 4 is improvement needed, 5 to 6 meets expectations, 7 to 8 exceeds expectations, and 9 to 10 is exceptional performance. Consistent in the surveys that were filled out and returned to me was Mr. Nasby continues to earn high marks in managing municipal finances and resources, and for the professional leadership he provides. Throughout the surveys, 8 points exceeds expectations was the common rating score. An occasional 9 rating, exceptional performance, popped up in that area of managing municipal finance. With almost 17 years of experience and his acquired knowledge of the city administrator position and city functions, it was felt that Steve provides the quality and leadership needed to guide new councils, staff, and department heads in finding conservative solutions to issues facing Windom's future. And just a case in point, Steve's willingness to step in and help guide the EDA while the search continues for a permanent director not only shows his abilities, but also his desire for the city of Windom to succeed. Mr. Nasby's overall rating, based on the responsibilities and competencies outlined in the evaluation form, is 8.3, based on the thought that Steve's quality of work is deemed superior in several areas of responsibility. So thank you, Steve, for your 17 years of professional leadership so far, and may the city of Windom benefit from many, many, many more years of service.
Thank you very much, Mr. Grunig. I certainly appreciate the council, and really thanks to all the department heads, because we're one team and you're as good as the people that work with you. And we've got a very, very good management team and very good staff all the way through. So they do the work for the citizens of Windom, and I'm very thankful for that. And they enable me to be successful, and I appreciate those relationships with staff and with the council, and look forward to many more years of this position as well. So thank you very much, and thank all of you.
Can we make sure that the minutes reflect you said many more years as well?
How about until retirement? Want to make a deal? So I'll start with the easy one. So we've got our Board of Review meeting, which is the meeting with the county assessor. We typically have that in the spring of every year. Marv is our trained council member. When there's more training dates available, I'll make sure to get that to the new folks. Maybe we can get someone else trained as well. I did talk to the county assessor this week, and we had tentatively set the meeting for May 8th. That was on our tentative council agenda because it's usually that second Monday of the May when we meet. Ms. Bond just called and asked if we could change it to the 9th. And so on your tentative council schedules that you were sent at the beginning of the year, it showed the 9th or the 8th, which is a Monday. She would like to move it to Tuesday, which is the second Tuesday of the month. For us, I know most of the council members block off all their Tuesdays, so I didn't anticipate that would maybe be an issue. And then otherwise, there is also school board on the May 8th. And so if we happen to run along, we could run into school board. So I think the move to the 9th would be okay as far as just some of the logistics, but I wanted to make sure that that was amenable to the city council to move that from a Monday to a Tuesday. What happened on their end is they had a conflict with the city of Comfrey. They're in Cottonwood County and Brown County, and Brown County is making some changes to its system, and they're trying to push all of their people back to the last possible dates, and then that bumped Comfrey from their original date to a new date, and then ripple effect down the line. So if you guys are okay with that, or then I'd get a hold of the county assessor and let them know that we can go with the 9th. Still be at 4:30. Usually that's when that meeting starts. But if that's okay with you guys, I will let her know we can do the 9th instead of the 8th. Is that okay? Okay. So thank you for that one. Secondly, I wanted to let you know that a few years ago, the city entered into an agreement for prosecution services with Cottonwood County and with the county assessor, or county attorney. They do our prosecution of our misdemeanors and some of our other crimes. We got a termination notice from County Attorney Nick Anderson saying that the County Attorney's Office will not be wanting to do our prosecutions anymore after May 1st. There is a 90-day out in the agreement we signed with them. This week, Police Chief and myself met with Ron Schrammel, our City Attorney, to kind of look at this a little bit, determine kind of what maybe next steps are. In looking at our agreement and state statute, we feel there's a little bit of language there that may allow us to hang on to that particular contract. The statute states that the contract's between the city, the board, and the county attorney, and we don't feel that necessarily that one party can pull out of that without concurrence of at least one of the other ones. And so we're kind of looking at that angle, but also in the event we do have to look for different service. We're contacting some other cities and have some ideas of, maybe soliciting some RFP type of information. What's your experience, background, costs, things like that. City of Mountain Lake hires attorney in private practice, does some of their stuff. Similarly in Jackson, similarly in Slayton. Redwood Falls has their own city attorney. That's all. They don't have private practice. They just do city work. So there are a variety of different models, but we may be looking at that too in the future. We can't look too terrible far out because May 1 will come before we know it. But I wanted to let you know I've been in contact with Larry Anderson, who's the chair of the Cottonwood County Board, and let them know kind of what our position is. I also had I did a voicemail and also an email to the two council or commission members that represent City of Windom. Ms. Gravely and Mr. Stevens are aware of it as well. So I know the county was meeting today. I don't know if it was on their agenda for discussion, but it's a kind of a two-party issue between the county attorney and the county board that City of Windom just kind of happened to be caught in the middle of it. Our contract does pay the county attorney's office about $49,000. Last year was $48,810. So, looking at our PD budget, that was the amount we spent on prosecution. So it's a fairly substantial sum that we put out towards that to help that office do those prosecutions. So, but just to let you know we're kind of taking a two-pronged approach on this. So if you see something in paper, hear something, somebody calls you and says, "Hey, what's going on?" You know what's going on. So if anybody had any questions, that I'm happy to answer them. Okay, this is pay request number 2. They're doing the work here at City Hall. We're kind of going to do the project in stages. They did 2 of the small roofs. There's 2 kind of single car garage stall size roofs, one on the fire hall end and then one kind of right over here behind this building. We had those 2 roofs done just due to the amount of snow that had come in over the winter now. There was quite a bit on the large old fire hall roof and the city hall roof itself, and there was requests for, let's say, many thousands of dollars additional cost to do snow removal. So in speaking with the building official and Schwickert's, we decided that we were going to wait till spring. The roof is buttoned down and shouldn't leak, and so we're feeling pretty confident there. So, but this is the pay request for the 2 roofs that were completed there, and they'll do the rest of the project come spring when the weather clears up a little bit and that snow gets off the roof. So, our recommendation is to pay this request.
I recommend to pay the contractor.
I would second.
Yes, I get called on this week. Okay, I have a list. Okay, first to start out with, the Windom Library this month is sponsoring, it's called Blind Date with a Book. And I thought that was really cool when I read that on the library's Facebook page. So I went down there, checked it out, and they have a lot of different books there, and they're wrapped up in Valentine paper. And they just have like a little one line that kind of summarizes a little bit of maybe what to expect in the book. So you can read that and pick out which one you think. And I picked out a book, went in my car. I couldn't wait to open it. It was like Christmas. So I got out to the car, opened it, and I got Wine and Punishment. I'm like, wow, how fitting that I would pick out a book like that. And by the third chapter, I was hooked. I really liked it. So you can go get a book from them. Then they just ask that you rate it like you would rate a blind date, and then bring the book back. So I thought it was kind of a fun program that they have going this month. So check out the library and a blind date with the book. It won't cost you anything. Then February is Minnesota School Board Recognition Month. So just want to recognize our Windom School Board for all the efforts that they put into the Windom School. There's just a lot of things happening within the Windom School, and they do a good job at just, everything that's on their plate, as, we do with council as well. Then, before we meet again, it'll be, Valentine's Day, so happy Valentine's Day to everybody. Then, February 15th is National School Resource Officer Appreciation Day. And so I wanted to give a shout out to Officer Dana Wallace. She has been the school resource officer for 10 years. And she does an amazing job. If you have kids that are going to school in the Windom school system and you say, do you know Officer Dana? I'm sure they will say yes. I have seen her out in the gym playing games with kids, high-fiving kids. I mean, she just has a really good personality and really connects with a lot of the kids, which, I know the main part of a resource officer is the safety of the school, but I think then the second major thing is connecting with the kids, and she does a great job with that. So February 15th, let's all remember to give Officer Dana the congratulations and appreciation for all she does. Then it was brought to my attention that two seniors at the Windom School, Rebecca Johnson and Allison Nagan, are doing a senior project that involves trying to find resources to improve the dog park and add some additional equipment down there. I know that they plan on coming and talking to our Park and Rec board meeting about their project and their research they're doing. So if anybody wants to help them out, look at contacting Rebecca Johnson or Allison Nagan for their senior project. Then also just to mention that we had the joint government meeting that I attended. This is the first time I've been on that board, and I thought that went really well. The joint government meeting, for those that don't know what that is, the schools, the different cities in our county, the county, like county commissioners, and different city representatives all get together and discuss issues that they have, things that are going on, so that we can hear, what's going on in Mountain Lake, what's going on with their city, what updates do they have. Storden was represented there at this last meeting we went to. County commissioners were there. We talked about some broadband issues. We talked about some THC discussion that we've had. And our next meeting is May 30th at 5:30, and it's going to be in Storden. So we're going to take a little field trip to Storden in May. So hopefully the roads should be good by May. Then the last thing I have is just to highlight that Kevin Honeycutt, the international speaker, the school is having tomorrow at the school for the kids, and he's also doing an evening talk at the Bark at 7 o'clock, and it's about providing positivity for students and talking about building resiliency. And so I'm hoping that I'll be able to get to that. That sounds like a really cool speaker. And it's nice when the Windom school brings something in for the kids, that then there's a time for parents and community members to hear that same speaker and what that is about, so that we can all work together on the same goals. That's it.
I have nothing. Mr. Grunig, you have any council comments?
Well, I guess I would just mention what Steve said, that if you had any thoughts about taking the training for that May 8th or 9th meeting, It's not difficult, it's online, and just in case I get hit by the proverbial bus, somebody would be here.
Mr.
nothing.
Nelson, do you have anything?
No.
Okay, thank you. I guess we can adjourn then. There.
All right, good job, guys.